Hi, I'm Michael Quigley, the founder of Cataholos. I'm on a mission to try and help 1 billion people. And in this video, I'd like to help you with how you can provide psychological safety at work. So we're going to look at what psychological safety actually is, in my opinion, to my mind, how you can consider, do we actually have it? And then what you can do to improve it. So you might want to make some notes. I've made some notes here because I'm going to give you a lot of things here. So what does psychological safety actually mean? So obviously safety means you feel safe. There's no fear there. You think, right, I'm in a safe place. But at work, it could be people feel safe to speak up in meetings. They feel safe to express opinions. They feel safe to be around certain people. And they're not scared they're going to be shouted down. And you might think, well, of course we have that. Every workplace has that. And it doesn't. So I think a really interesting way for you to feel what psychological safety feels like now, don't worry, I'm not going to try and scare you, is just have a look up. Look up at the ceiling in the room that you're in. And chances are you haven't done that for a long time. Every time you walk into a room, every time you walk into a company, every time you walk into a shop or a store or somewhere, we assume that we are safe. We've got this kind of like air of like, yeah, yeah, I'm safe here. If you didn't feel the ceiling was safe and it was going to fall in, you wouldn't be watching this video. You get out of the room. Do you remember during COVID, suddenly walking down the street, suddenly being in a room full of people, didn't feel as safe. Do you remember that fear? Do you remember how it's like, well, not quite. That's what it's like if people don't feel safe at work. And it's not nice. And often in leadership positions, as managers, as CEOs, directors, business owners, we assume that we are providing that feeling of like, yeah, you're safe here, it's fine. Ceiling's not going to metaphorically fall in, but we don't. Because how do you know? Because it's psychological, it shows in people's behaviors maybe, but you don't know what's going on behind the ears, as it were, right? So that's psychological safety. People feel safe at work to speak up, express their opinions. They're not dominated by fear. And if you forget what that feels like, just consider what it's like. If you walked into a room, you thought the ceiling was going to fall in, you wouldn't want to be there. And equally, what it's like during COVID. So I've got 3 questions that you might think, okay, well, how do I actually know then if my people feel safe at work? 3 questions you can ask yourself. The first one is, well, how could we audit this? How could we find this out? You can't just go up to somebody at work and say, do you feel safe around me? Because it just sounds odd and it's unusual and it's not a good idea. And you might have 5,000 people in your workplace. So you could consider doing a survey. That's the first thing. Bear in mind, every survey you do, 25% of people are always unhappy. It just seems to be a thing. But I'd ask it more as an open-ended question, saying, how do we audit our culture for psychological safety? How do we actually know? Because we always assume we're doing well, but how do we actually know? So that's the first question. How do you audit your culture? The second thing is you can say, well, how do we provide psychological safety in meetings, when we have team meetings, board meetings, weekly catch-ups, when you've got the team around, whether it's online or in person? How do you actually know people are feeling safe there to speak up? You've got your agenda and you've got your bit you're saying, everybody has their little bit. Yeah, yeah, sure. But where's the space? Safety is all about space. People don't feel like they have space. They feel squeezed. They haven't got a chance to speak. Then they get scared. So recommendation, just put a little bit of wiggle room in there. Don't call it any other business because that's just boring. People switch off. But you can say, right, we've got an opportunity now. Has anybody got something like to share? Open it up. It's called wiggle room. Just give them a little bit of wiggle room. It takes 5 minutes. It can make all the difference to somebody think, yeah, actually, I'd like to say something, please. So you can provide that wiggle room. The third thing is consider, I work with lots of different types of businesses, and a lot of them have hierarchies, and rightly so, they need them. But if you start to put some of these things I'm going to suggest now into place, you might get pushback from people that like hierarchy. They're like, well, no, they shouldn't be speaking to me like that. They shouldn't be able to express their opinion whenever they want. It shouldn't be like this. When I did it this way, and it's like this. You get pushback from people sometimes in hierarchy. And what I can suggest with that one is you can say, well, the whole point of a hierarchy in any system is in service to the humans, is in service to us as people. We're not here to serve the system, right? The whole point of a hierarchy is so that people know the places and there's no duplication and things like that. But it's all about human interaction here, right? Nobody comes to work to be scared. And you can say that to them and say, if it's gotten to the point where, would you want to be scared of me? And then, of course not, that's ridiculous. You say, well, can you imagine if somebody's scared of you? They say, well, I wouldn't want them scared of me. You say, this is what we're talking about here. Yeah. We're not talking about giving people what they want all the time. We're talking about making sure they're just not scared. They feel safe and secure. It's like a standing point. Yeah. So you do get sometimes pushback because people misunderstand this concept because it's not that well known. Okay. So you might think, okay, I can ask those questions, but what do I actually do? Right. So I've made a podcast on this. If you click on the link with this video, you can listen to the podcast, but I wanted to give it to you now. what I call three safety structures. So imagine it's like a house, right? We're going back to the example of the ceiling. Yeah. The ceiling has the beams, the ceiling has all the different things. I don't know about buildings, but it's solid. Every time you step into a room, it's solid. So how do you make sure your workplace, metaphorically and literally, figuratively, is solid? You have safe talk, you have safe people, you have safe spaces, right? So safe talk, that's the first thing. When you talk to people, are you warm and friendly in your tone? How are you doing? Or are you very cold and snappy? In your emails, so that is the vibe you're giving off what I've said before? Somebody could express an opinion back to that, or is it sharp, snappy, do this? You know, when people talk to you, do you reckon they feel safe around you? Are you calm? Are you friendly? Are you inspirational? Do people open up to you? you know and then you might think, for you, yeah, sure, but what about your managers? What about your directors? Watch them. Pay attention to the quality of their communication. Do people kind of like tense up around them, or do they relax, they open up? Another way you can see is when people have meetings, it's over, do people stick around and talk? Do they hang out at lunchtime? Do they mention things outside of work when there's an opportunity? They're all good signs that you've got safe talk. Okay. And like I said before, the wiggle room, even the space to talk about that. So safe talk, right? Certain things you think, yeah, okay, we say it in that way. So it's friendly, it's warm, it's invitational. Second thing is safe spaces. So this is environmentally as well as psychologically. So to go back to the building example, you work in the trade, you put your hard hat on, you've got steel cap boots. If you work in manufacturing, packaging, things like that, it's pretty obvious when you're safe to look at. But how do you do that, environmentally? Well, like I said before, making sure you've got wiggle room, making sure you've got places physically. It might be meeting rooms, or places online, could be breakout rooms, or places, WhatsApp groups, things where people can belong. And it's like, right, this is just a place for me. This is a place where I can just feel safe. Places, yeah, I think, where do people feel where they can just I do a lot of work with people when they try and get people together for networking events and socials, and you do like CPD and talks, and it's during the social bit at the bar, people relax, a safe place. So where are the places? And the third one is safe people. Now, you'd want to assume that people feel safe around you, and that's hopefully the case. But again, if you're in a leadership position, it's not about you, is it? You figure that out. It's about all the other people. So have you got mentors in place? Have you got quality professional management going in place? Are people, managers, doing really well? Do they feel supported so they can then provide that safety and that support? That's really important. So think about that. Think about the people. And you might think, well, is that so-and-so, that person? And I've been hearing complaints, and people say, they're scared of them and people like that. Nobody comes to work to be scared. And this is the final point I'm going to make for call to action for you. You might think, that's a lot of extra work there. I've got things going on. Isn't this just like an extra thing? It's not an extra thing. It's absolutely essential. The world is an incredible, beautiful, but also very volatile place. And this volatility and this fear makes people either just shrink and they get paralyzed, or they do the opposite and they go on the attack. You don't want either of that in your workplace. You don't want people unproductive, just scared at work, like all presenteeism, their productivity is zero. And you don't want them equally attacking other people, because they feel like they're vying for space. You don't want that. I actually added it up. I've got over 20,000 hours now of training children and adults. And I'll tell you now, if people don't feel safe, you don't get the best work out of them. You don't get the best content, productivity, any results that you want right now before the end of the year or into the new year, right? If people feel safe and solid and secure, they've got that base, they're like, right, I can get on with things. Can you imagine if you didn't feel that, if you had that fear and you're still trying to do the thing? It's not going to work, right? So it's quite powerful, this. When you actually look to see it, you might just be able to plug some little gaps, and suddenly you might see productivity increase. Suddenly you see improvement in culture. Suddenly you just feel a different, it's quite amazing, actually, when you can feel there's this safe, warm, welcoming vibe. Nobody comes to work to be scared. Just consider that. And that is not a prerogative that you have. It's not a privilege that you have. People say we need to have respect. Respect is not the same as fear. You show people respect and make safe spaces, talk, and people for them, they will reciprocate, and the fear doesn't need to be there. So hopefully that's helpful for you. So think about it in terms of your call to actions. Ask yourself those questions. How do you audit your safety? Yeah? Where are the safe places? And how can you handle those people that might push back on you, so you can explain to people who don't come to work to be scared of you? Are you aware of that? See what they say to that. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Please give it a like and subscribe to Catalyst. If you like more leadership material, if you click on the link in the video, we've got the Catalyst online platform. It's got free videos, it's got articles, all sorts of things you can do to take yourself further on your leadership journey. So take care, thanks for watching, and see you soon.